Tom Hanks, you might know him more importantly as Chet Hanks' father. That's really why he matters, right? Chet Hanks' father opposes censorship of old books. He says, we're all adults here.
You might know Tom Hanks from the movie Big, in which he is not an adult here.
Yes.
He's a child in an adult's body.
I wish they used that picture as like the picture for him saying that.
It was also, yeah, we're all adults here.
It would have been so funny.
Which was also a really creepy movie, obviously.
I never saw Big.
I have seen it, and I was a kid at the time, so I guess I didn't understand at the time how creepy this was.
Yeah.
Or I didn't understand the implication, but while he is a child, mentally, he has sex with an adult woman who knows that he's a child.
Yep. It's weird.
And it was passed off like it was totally normal.
Yep.
And romantic.
It's kind of like that scene at the end of Blank Check where the 35-year-old FBI agent kisses the 12-year-old boy and says, like, look me up on your 18th birthday.
Wow.
Honestly, the big example is worse, but yes, there was a lot of sussy content like that.
It was the 90s. It was the 90s. Like everything bad that's ever going to happen in the world now is just going to be laughed off with. It was the 90s. Are you kidding me? It was a different time.
So he's making a novel, or is it an autobiography called The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece?
Yep. He says, he says, I am of the opinion that we're all grown-ups. Let's have faith in our own sensibilities as opposed to having somebody else decide what we may or may not be offended by. Let me decide what I'm offended by and what I'm not, or what I'm offended by and what I'm not offended by. I wouldn't be against reading any book from any era that says abridged due to modern sensitivities.
Yeah, he would be.
I would be, yes.
It's all the old and gray stars in the entertainment industry that are talking about book censorship specifically
because they're the only
right
ones
now.
reading.
Well, maybe that, but also they obviously come from a different time and a time of different sensitivities.
Dinosaurs.
But I don't really respect it because
he wants Epstein's flight logs to be censored.
Well, that's one thing. I mean, Tom Hanks has been on the Epstein flight logs. Never addressed that.
Wayfair.
I'm sure he's really into buying cabinets from Wayfair.
Yes.
Named someone's legal name.
And
sure he was the first celebrity to come out as having COVID.
Getting COVID
back in 2020. Which seemed like a psyop at the time as well.
He is, however, kind of he's
a reptilian.
He's the exception to the rule as somebody who's been married for 35 years.
I feel like that's just like you have too many secrets on each other.
Well, that's the thing. That's why Will Smith and Jada are still married.
Right.
Untangling
That's a money thing,
I'm saying untangling all the financial assets is just too much work, right? But for Tom Hanks, I mean, he did give us Chet Hanks, so he's got at least one good thing going.
He gave us one thing worthwhile in the world.
Keeps on giving. I'm so grateful for Chet Hanks in this world.
Yeah.
Just the fact that Chet Hanks exists and that he found Jamaican culture is just like, you can't make that up.
We
it's
were
the greatest
just
story.
Discussing Jamaican culture because of Under the Sea in
the
new Little Mermaid movie.
Nice. I haven't even seen that.
They still left him with his Jamaican accent, which was considered offensive for a long
problematic.
time.
Yeah, everyone has to be whitewashed. Everyone has to be exactly the same.
They should have cast Chet Hanks as that voice actor.
That would have been freaking amazing.
What the hell? Such a
I
missed
loved
opportunity.
that. Yeah.
Dude, and then they just CGI his head on him.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Like, I wonder how Tom Hanks feels about the censoring of video of movies. Then, like, I'm assuming
he probably is like, oh, that's not happening.
Like, yeah,
he would just completely hypocritically deny it.
Yeah,
and hypocrite Steven Spielberg also was featured in this article saying basically the same thing. I mean, he self-censored. We talked about this somewhat recently. With gun violence that was in the movie E.T.
Yes, well, not even gun violence, but perceived possible gun violence that could have happened.
The threat of gun violence, more accurately.
Well, what about walkie-talkie violence? That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah, they're gonna kill E.T. with walkie-talkies. I mean, that's crazy because like when I watched E.T. as a kid, the entire like suspenseful moment of them like raiding the house is that you think they're gonna shoot him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
they're not going to be like, stop
what is
there!
The point of the suspenseful climax of the movie anymore?
You know what they could do? They should just totally go the opposite direction, and instead of instead of like changing it back, make walkie-talkies that shoot bullets.
Yeah.
And they can just do that. Also, like beyond that, for these things, for censorship in books and movies, I just find that there is a divide here between the older and the younger audience, or I'm sorry, the older and the younger celebrities. But that's because I don't think that the older celebrities know how bad it is.
No, they're like unplugged.
Yes.
They're not nearly as plugged in as people our age are at all.
Like, I don't think that he realizes how much these companies are actually censoring and how much these companies are actually changing works. Like, he might get asked these questions at an interview, but I don't buy that he's looking into it that deeply.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think as someone of cultural relevance, you kind of have a responsibility to speak out on it, maybe. Like, I rarely say that.
I don't know about he has a responsibility to do that, but I do believe that he has a responsibility to be as informed as possible about the stuff he chooses to speak about, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, since he is speaking out now.
Yeah.
But I feel like he probably would hypocritically support so many other forms of censorship that this condemnation of it is meaningless. And Steven Spielberg's condemnation of it is also meaningless, since he was a perpetrator of censorship.
I guess he has managed to remain friends with Tim Allen all these years later. Wow. Like, he's avoided having to like decry Tim Allen as far as I remember.
Grandfathered in.
Yeah, like
that's how it always is.
I used that phrase yesterday. Okay, so Kellen started like a topic on Twitter talking about whether the show House could get made today, because me and him are frequently talk about how it would not be possible.
Were you guys talking about it because people keep comparing it to The Good Doctor
on
Twitter right now?
I think it came up.
Everyone's like, we already had the best show about an autistic doctor that disrespects trans people.
Same creator.
You can't just do it again.
Yeah. So some person's like, that argument's weak. Haven't you seen shows like Succession? All the characters are horrible. I'm like, not in the same way.
They're horrible and not charming.
Yes. It's nice. Like, but somebody even point out, they're like, horrible to who?
They're also not funny.
Yes. But like wink, that argument, somebody says, what about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? I shouldn't, the person seemed fairly respectful. I shouldn't put a funny voice to it. Said like, what about Always Sunny in Philadelphia? They're awful. I'm like, they actually gave an interview, either the stars of Always Sunny in Philadelphia or the creators gave an interview where they said, we're allowed to do this because we've basically been grandfathered in because we existed before the cultural shift. The same is true of South Park.
Yeah, definitely.
They're allowed to still do it, and they've still toned it down.
When you watch House, do you feel like you are supposed to hate House?
That's a complicated question.
I don't like anti-hero.
Yes. No, he's an anti-hero.
You're not supposed to hate him, right?
You're not supposed to like him.
With Succession, I think that the intention is that you are equally hateful of all the characters because none of them have redeeming qualities or redeeming motivations.
House has in the way of redeeming qualities, he has the tenacity to save lives, even if the reason he saved lives are selfish.
And also say things that other people aren't willing to say.
Yes. And even when he saves lives, he doesn't do it for noble reasons. He does it because selfishly he needs to get the right answer. Right.
And he's funny, which is a key factor there.
And in a lot of ways, he kind of came about at a time where a lot of people would have liked to have been able to speak to their bosses or their coworkers like that. And he kind of taps into that wish that I think everybody might have to be the smartest guy in the room and be able to act accordingly, because you do get treated with you get held to a different standard if you have an undeniable ability to provide something that other people cannot provide. Right. Yeah. So like, but I don't believe that they could make that show today. But I don't know if that gets grandfathered in too also, because like bringing back House wouldn't be the same thing as making a new show like it with a character that acts like him.
Well, the issue is that in The Good Doctor, that protagonist doesn't act anything like House because he's extremely fragile. And
it's funny too, because they actually make a point. There is an episode of House where they float the idea of him having Asperger's, and Cuddy basically shuts him down and says it's a much simpler solution. He's an asshole.
Before people wanted labels like that.
Yes, exactly. Like, I mean, back then you would hear such crazy lines as "I don't want to be seen as a victim," which nowadays nobody would ever say anything like that, because victimhood is currency in today's society.
House started in what year?
2004.
Yeah.
So it was like on that tail end of the irreverent era where we have like ebbs and flows. People say that there was actually somewhat of a like sensitivity era in the 80s and 90s
There
was then replaced in maybe the mid 90s with a more irreverent one.
Right.
And that we just do this
South Park has an episode
back
about
and
this.
forth
Yeah.
throughout at least the modern era.
Society responds to what the actual culture in the world is like. I mean, a lot of people believe that shows like This Is Us were born out of like fear of society after Donald Trump became president. Like shows like that, things that they call bathtub television, were designed to comfort people in times of uncertainty.
90210 feels like a high like sensitivity show. Yeah. That was like, let's like address in a PSA fashion the issues teens are facing right now. I mean, especially like teen pregnancy media too.
Yeah.
Even shows like One Tree Hill had a lot, like they had a school
I remember that show.
Pew Pew episode. And stuff like that. And they covered drugs
with Drake.
No, that was Degrassi.
Oh yeah, Degrassi did it though.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that was
like,
the late 2000s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Still the greatest meme of all time is the Drake and it's his character and it says they see me rolling. It says last name walking, first name never.
Wheelchair Aubrey.
Bad times. The culture was bad. So Tom Hanks doesn't win any points from us. A broken clock can be right twice a day. Mm-hmm. You can give us Chet Hanks and you can decry censorship as bad. That's your twice a day. That's 12 and 12.
Colin Hanks basically cancels out Chet.
That, like I said, it's a fascinating. I actually view them. I view them as a perfect argument as to why we will never be able to have a truly socialist or communist economy or world. Because look, if you can't even give birth to two kids that turn out radically the same, if the same man can give us both Colin Hanks and Chet Hanks, how can we really expect to live in a world where everyone is treated equally and comes out the same? Doesn't make any sense.
Good point.
May the Bert be with you.
Yes. Well, that's true. All right. Like, look, do you think this is the type of thing where if it was his movies being censored, that he would push back on it?
Maybe. I mean,
like it's like in the case
he doesn't
that
have
it's
principles. Let's just
not
pretend that he does.
Spielberg said that he called his own self-censorship a mistake.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Does this happen in music? Is there an equivalent to this in music?
I've seen
Lizzo.
Music. I guess music. It's changed, right?
I actually saw a YouTube short the other day. I was watching shorts like we all do. I just got scrolling. And I watched something about Snoop Dogg being asked on
AI.
Not AI. He was asked about his music and how problematic it was in the 90s.
It wasn't the Shade Room. I know.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Sway.
Were there like, do you regret your misogynist?
It was with Charlemagne. I think.
He's like, do you regret your misogynist lyrics?
Yes,
and
he was like, no, I don't. Because,
F these hoes.
Yeah, right. Because in reality, which is what is being said here as well, is like that was like a signpost at the era and the time, and that was what I was like during that time, and that's what was okay at the time. Yeah. And like, I'm not gonna retcon my music. Like it would just be. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense to me. But
maybe in a lot of ways, we didn't consider the fact that we would enter an era like. Imagine like it's the 80s, right? And you're making movies, your movie comes out in theaters and then it comes out on VHS and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Maybe you watch it every once in a while, but you're not rewatching outside of like a hit like a Star Wars, maybe you rewatch on a regular basis. Right. But now with entertainment being so easily accessible, it feels more omnipresent than it did back then.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
So the question of whether it would need to be censored was never relevant till now.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know.
It's a good point. It's way more accessible too. Like anyone can watch it. There's no real
That's
like.
how it's been on Disney.
I was watching old Doctor Who last night, and back in the day, that wouldn't have been something that you could easily find or have access to without.
Even when I first went to university in 2010, it wasn't easy to just do that. You had Netflix, but it wasn't nearly to what it is today. There wasn't Hulu. There wasn't Amazon Prime Video. There wasn't like every possible. And there wasn't Paramount Plus. There wasn't. It just wasn't a thing.
Every time I watch Paramount Plus, I feel like I'm being a contrarian. I do. I feel like I'm doing it just because I'm not like the other kids. Even if that's not why I'm doing it, I feel like I'm going through. I feel like Paramount Plus is me going through a rebellious phase in streaming. Same with Peacock.
Totally.
Same with Peacock. I'm like, oh man, I don't need Netflix. I don't need Hulu. Even though I watch Hulu more than I watch any of the others. But I think that just may be a fashion of taste. Like everyone's gonna have one where their interest gets drawn to more more
Totally,
readily.
yeah.
So I don't know. Censorship is a question we're going to have to continue to worry about because it's going to continue to be in the hands of like the richest and wealthiest people, and it's going to be consistently consolidated down to smaller and smaller groups. Eventually, it will not be like we actually talk a lot about how there's a lot of choices right now, but there's really not. Five sounds like a lot when you're paying for 5 streaming services, but only being able to get your media from 5 major conglomerates is not really a whole lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why YouTube is so popular.
Yeah.
You know,
People should
wanna
steal
go to
more.
Somebody clip that.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Genuinely, why shouldn't they? Give me one good reason. I'm waiting.
I'm cool with it. As a person who's in electronic music, like I think that stealing, aka sampling, aka repurposing things is totally fine.
Disco Jensen.
Thumbs up for theft.
Yeah, let's do it, guys.
Disco Jensen says, came back to hear Doctor Who mentioned. Did it get worse? No, I'm watching Christopher Eccleston Doctor Who right now. I'm not watching Jodie Whittaker.
I loved it so much. I love Doctor 9 so much.
Tenet, right?
No, that was
he's
before
10.
Tenet.
He's 10. I'm telling you, I'm loving
Tenet.
Tenet.
Is it Tenet or Tenet?
Tenet.
David Tennant.
Tenet, I think.
Yeah. So it's I love the cinematography from that time period because it was just so funny when they didn't have the CGI budgets that they have now. They had to make so much more work with so much less.
I liked it.
It's great. So.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.